We're starting off from the very basic. Regardless of the fact whether you have taken IBS test before or not, I'll walk you guys through the very basics. And then whatever queries you may have, you would either ask me during the class or then at the end of the session as well. So if we were to talk about IBS test beta, so IBS test broadly has two components. It's broken down into English and maths. The English section has 45 to 50 questions. The time duration that we have for that is between 60 to 65 minutes. Likewise, for maths, we have 45 to 50 questions, and the time duration that we have for that varies between 70 to 80 minutes. The orientation session is going to cover both the IBA and the LCAT, and largely will first be discussing the things that are similar to both the tests, and then I'll be having some LCAT specific discussion. But since there's a fair overlap between the two tests, so a lot of the things that we're going to discuss in today's class apply to both the IBS test and the LCAT test. So once again, if I would talk about IBA, we have 45 to 50 questions. The time duration, unlike the SAT, is not fixed. It could vary between 60 to 65 minutes. For maths, historically speaking, we have had 45 to 50 questions, and the time duration for that varies between 70 to 80 minutes as well. Likewise, how exactly does the grading work? So please understand that. Let's just say if you have 10 questions and if you get 7 of them right, so for IBS test, you get 4 points for every question that you get correct. So 7 times 4 would be 28. And for every question that you get wrong, there's no negative marking for that. So 3 times 0 will eventually be 0, and your net score will be 28. In case if you're taking this for CBM and ZEBIS as well, so for every question that you get correct, you get 3 points for that. So you basically get 21. And there is negative marking in both CBM and ZEBIS tests. So for every question that you get wrong, they deduct 1 mark for it. So 3 times 1 would be 3, and your net score in this case would be 18. And if we were to talk about lumps, so lumps tends to follow SAT scoring structure, but they do not really make it public. Also, lumps does not announce how much score you've gotten in the LCAT test. So you either get in or you do not get in, but they do not really make your LCAT score public ever. So that's how the scoring works for each of for IBA, CBM, and lumps as well. Once again, for lumps, the scoring has not been ever made public. So I would not really be telling you that this is how the scoring works. But for lump, you rather submit your entire either your LCAT score, yes, your SAT score. In addition to that, they pay attention to your grades as well, which is what I'm going to talk about in the next half an hour. They do pay attention to your personal statement, your ECAs, and then, of course, you must have 2B1C to get admitted in your A levels, or if you're coming from intermediate background, you must have 70% to get into lumps. So we'll talk about each of these aspects later today. For IBIS test, broadly, first, please notice for IBIS test, we do have a thing called cutoff. Please understand how cutoff basically work. Cutoff simply means passing marks. And when it comes to IBS test, so IBA would tell you, hypothetically speaking, that you need 60 marks in English, 90 marks in maths, but your sum for both of these portions should be 205. It would not be an individual sum of these two sections. It would be 40 to 50 marks greater than the individual sum of these two sections. So basically what they mean is, let's just say, if we were to talk about this person, so you could see this person apparently has gotten 80 in English. So he seems to have cleared the English portion. He's gotten 100 in maths. So he seems to have cleared the maths portion as well. And the total score for this person is 180. And thereby, this person apparently has failed IBS test. Why? Because this person is 25 marks short of total marks. So you have to be able to clear the 3 cutoffs, the English cutoff, the maths cutoff, the total cutoff as well. and works the same way for lumps as well, except that they do not really make it public. But lumps becomes a bit lenient with this or with your total score if you have good overall O-level grades, considering they pay good attention to your O-level grades, but whereas IBA does not pay attention to your matriculation or O-level grades, but lumps does pay a lot of attention to your O-level grades and your matriculation grades. Likewise, if we were to talk about this person, so you could see this person has gotten 100 in English, 100 in maths, but once again, this person apparently has failed the test. Why? Because this person is 5 marks short of the total marks, and which is why this person will simply not be able to get in. And if you were to talk about this person, somebody who happens to be very good at English, so he needed 60 marks and he ended up getting 140. In maths, he needed 90 marks and he ended up with 80. And the total marks that were required were 205, and this person ended up getting 220. Even then, this person will fail IBS test. And why exactly will this person be failing IBS test? Because this person seems to have failed the maths test by the maths portion by 10 marks. So please notice that your very good performance in one section won't make up for your average performance in the other section. So your very good performance in English won't make up for your weak performance in maths and vice versa. So let us say if you're somebody who's good at maths, but if you fail the English portion, so your maths marks can't compensate for these marks over here in the English section, you're still required to get a minimum of 60 there to clear the English portion. Also remember, in case if you just joined the meeting, so these marks that I've just written, these are hypothetical. This cutoff keeps on changing every year. It does depend on certain factors. So this cutoff that you see, it keeps on changing every year. Likewise, if you were to talk about this person, so this person apparently has gotten 60 in English. So this person has cleared the English portion. This person has gotten 90 or well, needed a 90 and he's gotten 140. So he has cleared the maths portion as well. Likewise, this person needed 205 and this person has gotten a 220. So this person has cleared the maths portion as well. And apparently this person will be able to get into IBA, considering that this person has cleared or met all three cutoffs. Likewise, if you were to talk about this person, so this person again has cleared all three cutoffs. So this person will be able to get into IBA. Or let's just say this person will be able to meet the cutoff requirement for IBA, provided that he meets the other requirements. In case, Britta, if you feel like copying this, you can copy this. I'll give a bit of pause here and then I'll proceed. Also remember, Beta, the cutoff in case if you're sitting IBS test is in terms of marks. The cutoff is not fixed. It keeps on changing every year and it is announced or revealed on the same day as IBS actual result. So please remember that cutoff will always be in terms of marks. The next thing that you must remember is that the cutoff is not fixed. It keeps on changing and the IB keeps on revising it and it is announced once your result is announced and it is revealed on the same day. So it's basically announced on the same day as your result. And the cutoff basically depends on a few factors. It largely depends on how difficult the paper was. So if the paper was difficult, considering IBA does not have a fixed pattern, Unlike LCAT and unlike SAT, IBA does not have a fixed pattern. So IBA's test paper could either be very difficult, could either be very easy. So the test pattern could keep varying. And even for your attempt, we do not know what they're going to test. But let's just say if it's a difficult test, so the cutoff will be low. And if it's an easy test, the cutoff will be high. So the cutoff keeps on changing, and it depends on the difficulty level of the test. So the harder the test, the lower the cutoff will be, and vice versa. So I've written it here that the difficulty level of test is inversely proportional to the cutoff. And once again, in case if you're preparing or appearing there in the LCAT exam, so for LCAT, we do have a specific pattern that IB tends to follow, and IB tends to test LCAT on the same way that the SATs are conducted. And please remember for LCAT, the lumps tend to follow a specific pattern. But once again, for IB, we do not have a specific pattern that IB sticks to. They keep on changing what they're testing. Also, they have never, ever stick to one pattern. So for IB, I need you to remember that there will never be a fixed pattern. The next thing I would like to talk about here is the priorities of the chosen program data. Please notice how the priorities over here work. Whenever you're filling out the form for IBA, so you would see a drop-down menu over there, and it would display a list of few degrees. And for example, if you were to apply to one of these programs, including BBA, Accounting and Finance, Social Sciences, BS Economics, so please notice that hypothetically speaking, once again, these numbers are based on assumptions, so you do not really have to take anything for granted over here. So this basically means that we need 60 in English, 90 in maths, and 205 to get into IB. Whereas for accounting and finance, we need 60 in English, 90 in maths, and our total marks, hypothetically speaking, should be 200. Once again, for social sciences, it's 195. For basic economics is 195. So let's just say if we talk about this person, let's just say when he fills out the form and he puts BBA as his first priority there, accounting and finance as his second priority, social sciences as his third, and BS economics as his fourth. And let's just say if he ends up with this score, so IB would see whether this person meets the requirement for the BBA or not. So apparently, this person is not meeting the cutoff for BBA, so IB will not consider this person for BBA, and IB will consider this person for his next priority, which is accounting and finance. And then IB will see whether he meets the cutoff for accounting and finance. So apparently, he does not meet the cutoff for that either. So then IB will consider this person for his third priority, which is social sciences. And then IB will see whether this person meets the cutoff for social sciences. So apparently this person does meet the cutoff for social sciences. So this person will then be admitted in social sciences. The reason why I'm telling you this is that there are a lot many students who tend to make this mistake, and this mistake is very common. That if somebody wishes to pursue BBA, so they tend to put BBA there, and they do not put any program as their second or third or fourth priority. Now, the problem here is that if you do not have enough marks to get into BBA, in this scenario, IBA will not be considering you for any of the other program because you simply did not make IBA clear that you were interested in other programs in addition to BBA. So if you do not get into BBA, for example, so you will simply not be considered for any of the other programs because you did not really make it clear to IBA that you were interested in other programs as well in addition to IBA, in addition to BBA. So it's your job to let IBA know while filling out the form that you would like to be considered for the other programs. So whenever you're filling out the program, whenever you're filling out the form, which I will just be repeating, somewhere in January, that these fields have to be filled as well. If you were to once again leave these fields blank, so IBA will not be considering you for the other programs. Same goes for LUMS as well. In case if you want LUMS to consider you for more than one programs, you'll have to let them know in advance that you would like to be considered for other programs as well. Now, the reason why this is particularly important is that because the test in February is what we refer to as a round one test. IBA has two rounds. One is usually conducted in February every year, and the other one is conducted in late June or early July. Now, in case if you're not really able to get into your desired program in round one, you will still have a chance to apply there in round two. So I wouldn't really like you guys to miss out on this opportunity. I would instead recommend that you guys get into any of the programs in round one, and then you can reset the test in round two in July, and then work harder and then get into your desired program. And God forbid, even then, if you're not able to get into your desired program, you would still have a seat. So what you can do here in that case is that you can continue in whatever program you are in. For example, you could get into social sciences. And let's just say if you wanted to get into BBA, but you have somehow got into social sciences, you can keep studying this program till the next February. That is going to be February 2026. Or let us say you can finish one semester. So your first semester exam will be held in December. And then you can appear for IBS test in round one 2026 again. And then you can take a transfer from social sciences to BBA after clearing the round one 2026 test. This way, your year will not be wasted, your time will not be wasted, your money will also not be wasted. So this, it is possible to have an internal transfer there in IBA from one program to the other program, provided that you meet the cutoff for the other program. So let's just say once again, if you're not able to get into your design program in round one or round two in 2025, so what you can do here is that you can still study there in your desired program, and then you can resit the test in 2026 February, and you can clear the test for your desired program, and then you can take a transfer. But once again, for that, you'll have to clear the test. Guys, if this part is clear to you, you can all acknowledge me either by unmuting, or maybe you can simply let me know there on the Zoom chat, and or you can pretty much text me there on the WhatsApp group. So you guys have a few options to acknowledge me. But a little bit, I'll be coming back with the questions in a bit. So Rajbit, if I were to answer this question briefly, so yes, they do. For IBA Beta, we do have these four programs that we have a test in February, and then we have another programs on which we have a test in March. So in February, you will be sitting the test for BBA, Accounting and Finance, Social Sciences and Economics. I'll come to LUMS a little later. And then you have tests for another three programs, including Computer Sciences, Eco and Maths, and Maths, but it's in March. And for these four programs, we have to sit the same test. And for these three programs, we have to sit a different test. Both the tests have two rounds. So these tests, they are going to have their first round in February 2025, and then followed by that, there will be another in late June 2025. And the other test, that is what we refer to as the CS test, or the computer science test, or the test that we have for eco and maths. We usually refer to that as the CS test for IBA because most people are sitting that test for the CS program. So that test is taken in March, and then in early July or mid of July, or sometimes late July. Also, when it comes to social sciences, there are a lot many people who are confused. So please notice, with social sciences, you get to have, or you could choose four majors. It's either psychology or political sciences or media and communications or history. So that is something that you will get to decide once you have started off your degree, and once you're done with your core subjects, so you'll get to decide in which of the four disciplines you would like to pursue your majors in. So once again, Peter, this point is particularly important, and that applies to both IB and LUMS, that you do not have to leave any of the fields blank, because if you do, so then you're simply not letting the university know that you could potentially be interested in more than one program. Once again, beta, for LCAT, I discussed that we do have a fixed pattern and they tend to stick to the same SAT pattern, but they do test some of the topics which are not tested in the SAT. For example, LUMS does test APGP, or arithmetic and geometric progression, but it is not tested on the SAT. Likewise, they do test on permutation. Once again, SAT does not have does not have permutation. Also, LUMS does test students on a lot of probability, and on the SAT we do not have a lot of probability. We only have two-way condition probability. Likewise, there are a few other topics which are tested in LCAT but are not tested in the SAT. For IBA beta, please remember that we do not have a fixed pattern. So you could have, let's just say, 20 straight questions on vocabulary, 15 questions on reading comprehensions, maybe 10 questions on grammar. And after 4 months, you could have 20 questions on grammar, 15 questions related to poems, 10 questions to post-test. So please remember, they do not really like sticking, or they have never liked sticking to one format. So in case if you have seen any past paper anywhere on the internet, please remember that in your attempt, they could stick to it or they could not stick to it. So it's very different from our conventional education. For example, in A levels or intermediate, we do have some past papers, or we do have basically a lot of our past papers, and we do know what our paper would look like. But when it comes to IBA's test, we do not know what the paper would look like. Also, for IBA, we do not have a syllabus. This is that we do have a broad curriculum. So IBA has put up a PDF of a syllabus, let's just say, but they do not really like sticking to it. There have been so many times when they have not tested questions from it. So which is why we have a curriculum. Even we as Tutor Plus keep updating our curriculum a lot, or our books a lot, uh, based on some of the past papers that IBA has published, or based on the feedback that we keep receiving from the students. We keep asking our students after every attempt at what kind of questions there were, and then we keep modifying. So that part is covered. That's not something that you have to worry about. That's something that we have to worry about. Because the timeline that we're going to be following for our course is that we're starting off from 30th of November. We'll be getting done with everything by mid of Jan. And then starting from mid Jan, could be late Jan as well, but we'll be spending the entire February. We are going to have almost 9 days there in February, and another we would get done by, let's just say, 25th of January. So we'll be spending the rest of the time doing the full length test. So what happens in a full length test is that we take a full scale test, and it's on the same pattern as IBS test, except that we have our own in-house tests, which are actually harder than the actual IBS test. We have deliberately made them harder than the actual test. So what we do then is that we take a full length test, then we sit down with you, we analyze your mistake, we discuss your mistakes, and then we tell you what topics you still need to work on before you take the next test. So there are 12 of them. And in addition to that, we do as many as 15 to 20 past papers as well. So you take 12 of our tests, then you take another 15 to 20 past papers. Now you do 15 to 20 past papers at home. These 12 tests are taken at the institute if you are an on-campus student. So for those of you who are taking the class here, so you will be taking these tests over here. And for those of you who will be taking the class online, of course, you'll be taking this test online as well. And in addition to that, with all of us do these 15 to 12, 20 past papers at home. So basically, once you are done with these 12 tests, then another 15 to 20 past papers. So it's safe to say that the actual IBS test will then be your 32nd or 33rd test. depending on how many past papers you have done. We do recommend it on average to do attempt 15 to 20 past papers. But once again, when it comes to IBA, remember the past papers are only a good practice. Once again, when it comes to IBA, it does not at all mean that your paper is going to look like the past paper. So once again, I'll talk about this in a bit. This over here that will be done with everything by late January on the CS side, and then we'll be doing a lot of additional practice and the test in the rest of the time. For LUMS beta, we do not have, once again, any interview. So you take the test, you submit your materials, that is your percentages, your transcripts, your ECS, your personal statement, and then you get to hear from the LUMS, or you'll get to hear from the LUMS from March till July. And on the basis of that, I'll give that in a bit, please. So then from March till July, you'll get to hear whether you have been admitted or not. And there's only one sort of admission. If you have taken a gap year, so then only maybe LUMS would like to either ask you on an email that what exactly or how exactly you spend your gap year, or maybe they could ask you for an interview as well, as an online interview, and you'll have to explain them that how exactly you spend your gap year. But that's very rare, and that's for the people who have taken a gap year before applying to LUMS. For IBA, regardless of the fact whether you've taken a gap year or not taken a gap year, there are two sorts of admission. One is what we refer to as the direct admission. The other one is through interviews. And IBS interviews have historically been difficult, specifically for round one, considering that they do ask students a lot about their academic grades and why exactly they want to come to business school. So you need to have a good case. And we do have interview classes here as well. So once you're done with the test, we do have the interview classes. We prepare you for all sort of questions, and that of course includes the way you have to dress up for the interview, your body language, how exactly your posture should look like when you're sitting there in front of them. So they ask you a variety of questions that you have to be ready for, and then you have to clear the interview as well. But for IB beta, what I do recommend is that all of you go for the direct admission and not worry or do not even consider through interviews. My rationale or my logic for this is very basic, and it's very simple, that there is only very little difference between the direct admission and the interview admission. I'll show you guys a PDF for that. Just give me a minute. Now, if you will notice, this over here is the result for the last year. And people who got in directly, that is without the interview, needed 184, that is 76 in English, 76 in math, and their total score should have been 184 to get in directly. Now that's for BBA. Is the same for accounting and finance. There is 76, 76, and 184. So I'll quickly skip to the part where they have given a list of the interview candidates. Now, please notice these people that you see had to sit for the interview, and the interview requirement, Batul Furqan, Javeria Kashyap, Ali Mahambita, Mustafa Rabia, Suraj Kumar Mabita, was 180. So I need you guys to particularly pay attention to this, and I need you to understand that what's going on there. So somebody who got a score of 184 got in directly. That is, that person did not have to sit for the interview, but the person who got one fewer MCQ right had to sit for the interview. So there's only very little difference between going to the interview route and then going through the direct admission path. So what I do recommend that is that when you guys are working and working so hard, so how about you guys work a little harder and try getting in directly? Because it only takes the same amount of effort to get in through the interview as well. So how about you walk a little extra mile and get in directly and do not worry about the interview route. That's what I would recommend. And also, I would like you guys to notice that anybody who got a score of 176, that is two MCQs wrong, so that person simply failed the test. So I'll put it here for the sake of clarity. So this data that you see on your screen is for a different year. That on 228, they offered a direct admission. 224, that means one fewer MCQ, right? Remember, there are 4 marks to get one MCQ right. So Ali, you did not join that. So I'll repeat it for you, Ali, that if you're taking it for IBA, if you're taking IBA's test, let's just say, so for one MCQ, you get 4 marks. So for getting each of the MCQ right, you get 4 marks. So this person apparently, whoever got 224 marks, this person got one fewer MCQ right from the person who got 228 marks. And then on 220, you're simply failing the test, and then you'll have to reappear in round 2. So there's only very little difference between, again, getting in directly and getting in through the interview, and then getting into the interview and then failing the test. So there's only 2 MCQs difference. Now, Kashyap beta, this 2 MCQs could either be one of the class that we missed, could be some of the English lectures that we did not take, some of the vocabulary words that we possibly did not learn, and then they showed up there on the test. Could be anything. So when it comes to IBS test and the LIMS test specifically, so the more you do, the better it is. And once again, try getting in directly for IBA in case if you're sitting the IBS test at all, which most of you are, and I believe some of you are taking this class for the LCAT as well. But as I mentioned at the start of the session, that I will be discussing everything that is similar, and then I'll be speaking about something that's only LIMS specific. Also, there's a lot of confusion regarding the grades as well. And this is probably one of the most asked questions. So I need to address this before I get down to the other topics there. So please notice for BBA, we need 2B1C. And for BS programs in IB, we need 1B2C. And the percentage that we need for IBA for the BB program is 65. And for all of the BS programs, if you're coming from intermediate background, that's 60%. Also, I need you to know that we do not need these grades or percentages at the time of sitting the test. Please, I'll go very slow when I say this, and I need you guys to pay attention that your driver who has only completed 8th grade or 10 grades on 10 classes only, or 5 classes only, could go and take the test with you. Your parents who finished their education way back would also go and sit the test there with you. Your younger siblings who are still in grade 8 can still go and take the test with you. So there's no requirement for grades to sit the test. Anyone can go and sit the test. Even your grandmother can go and sit the test. These requirements only come into play, or these requirements only come into consideration once you're admitted there in IBA. And then once your second year or your A levels result is out, then only will IBA be asking you to submit your grades or your percentages or your transcripts, and then only you should have these grades. A lot many people do not sit there in IBS test thinking that they do not have these required grades. So I'll give you another example that if there's someone who's sitting for 3 accelerated exams and he or she does not have any AS grades, so even he or she can sit the IBA and LCAT test. There's no requirement, there's no prior requirement to have any sort of grades in AS or A2. Once again, you're only supposed to submit your results once they're out. And IB and LUMS are both very well aware of the facts when the results are coming out. The percentage requirement for LUMS, however, is 70%, whereas the grade requirement is the same for A levels, it's 2B1C. Guys, if you have any problem till here, so please do let me know. In case if this part is clear, so keep acknowledging. Furqan is clear, Batul, Kashyap, Javeria, Maham, Ali, Mustafa, Siraj, Humama. For LCAT, however, but I would like you guys to know the requirement is a bit more comprehensive. For LUMS, please remember they do pay attention to your O-level grades. So you must have a minimum of 5 A's in addition to a very good SAT or LCAT score in order to be considered for LUMS. Please remember for LUMS, there have been people who did not hear back from LUMS even after having a 1500 on the SAT. And there are people who do get in with a score of 1300. So LUMS has a very holistic, has a very comprehensive criteria. So in unlike IBA, they're not simply looking at your SAT score. They do take into account various components of your overall profile, including your ECAs, your achievements, your participations, your essays, and your personal statements, and of course, either the LCAT and the SAT score. So for LUMS, once again, please remember the criteria is a bit more comprehensive than it is for IBA. Now, for LUMS, it really depends which of the degree you wish to pursue. So you can either go to the business school, engineering school, law school, or the humanities school, or then we have another new school, School of Education, so that each of these programs or each of these schools, they offer different programs. So we need to see LUMS also does not offer BBA. A lot many people do think that LUMS offers BBA. LUMS does not offer a BBA degree. Instead, it offers ACA for accounting and finance, which IBA also does. And they also offer management sciences degree, which IBA does not offer, but LUMS does. Also, there are multiple engineering programs, law, of course, and then there are other programs as well. The School of Engineering has the most programs, so that really depends on you that which other program you will eventually wish to pursue from LUMS. I'll talk about the scholarship and some of the other part over here. Once again, if when it comes to both IB and LUMS, a lot many people think that they do know what's coming. So LUMS does tend to follow SAT pattern, but it does not 100% stick to it. Like I said, they do test you guys on the topics which are not part of the SAT. So both of the tests are unpredictable, but the IBS is more unpredictable. It has always been unpredictable. So in case if anybody tells you that you could just do this, I set the IBA test in 2000 this or this year I did this. Please remember, you could simply tell that person to sit the test with you and then reappear and then clear the test again. There have been people who clear IBS test in round 1, and when they reset in round 2 to get into their desired program, they're not able to clear it for any of the programs. So if somebody's telling you that I cleared IBS test, which is why you should be listening to me, is simply a newbie or has very limited evidence or has very few examples in front of him. So please, uh, for those of you specifically who keep taking advices on the Facebook groups and WhatsApp groups, particularly from your peers, not from your teachers or seniors. So I need you guys to be very caution. I need you guys to be very careful that the test is not predictable. It has always been unpredictable. Another misconception that a lot many people do have is that I'm coming from the pre-medical background. So do you really think I can ace this test? Do you think I should sit in this test? So my answer for these people is very common and is very basic, that we do have tens of students, if not hundreds of students every year who want to pursue medicine. They sit MD-CAT exam in Pakistan, and somehow they're not able to get into their desired medical colleges, and somehow they decide to change their field, and then they decide to get into IBA. And please notice that I'm referring or I'm talking about the people who have not studied maths in the last 2 years or 3 years, and even they study for it, and even they do pretty well, and they get into IB or LUMS as well. It's just that since they're pretty used to the hard work because of the MD-CAT exam, so all they have to do is replicate the same kind of hard work, except that the test is a bit different. So if you are somebody who can commit yourself regardless of your academic background, so you should not really be worrying about the fact that you have not studied maths in the last 2 years or 3 years. Likewise, another thing that you would hear is that you do not really have to study for it, or I studied only a week ago for it and I cleared it. Please remember, we do not have to worry about 5% exceptional cases. It takes a lot of effort for the remaining 95% of the people. But once again, if you're serious, so hard work always beats talent, and you can, of course, get in, provided that you actually study. I'll talk about IBS test and how it has evolved over the years, because LUMS has always been like the SAT, but and SAT, I would not really like to talk about the SAT evolution over the years, considering this is not an SAT orientation. But for IBS test, I would like to talk about the fact that it used to be a bit predictable. Previously, there used to be synonyms, antonyms, there used to be grammar, and then there was no essay, and there were easy topics. Then one of the directors, Dr. Ashit Hussain, made quite a few changes. He introduced essay and then more topics that continued from 2009 till 15. Then in 2016, the SAT was changed before the DSAT. So they lean on towards the SAT for 2 years. And then in 2018, they started testing poems. They started testing new topics in maths as well. And the negative marking was revoked. And in 2019, they stopped testing students on the essay as well. So in your attempt, there is not going to be essay there in IBIS test. So there's no longer essay there in IBIS test anymore. So at Tutor Plus Beta, we will be covering all of this. And then there used to be another test that we used to refer as SAT2. It was again revoked during the COVID. And there used to be two different levels of maths there, maths level 1 and maths level 2. So we make you practice for all of these things over here, considering the unpredictability of the test. So for both English and maths, and for both IB and LUMS, will be over preparing instead of being under prepared, considering the nature of the test. So regardless of the two tests that you're sitting, please notice you will be over prepared. The goal is that we want to leave no stone unturned when it comes to English or maths. We just want to be over prepared instead of being under prepared. Also, this is a very common question that I'm asked very often. Regardless of the program that you're applying to, please notice, I would like to address this before, because once again, many people have misconceptions about the scholarship as well. So previously, what would happen that anybody who would go to the main campus of IBA would get a 50% scholarship, and the people who would go to city campus had to pay 100% of the fee. But it isn't like it was your choice whether you would go to the main campus or the city campus. It's just that the top 50% of the people would go to main campus, and the bottom 50% of the students would go to city campus. That was the case way back in the past. Let's just say that was the case around easily, I could say, 15 years ago. And then they would give scholarship to the top 10% of the people. And now they've even stopped doing that. Now, in case if you need any sort of financial help or scholarship from both LUMS and IB, so there is a proper criteria for that. But please notice, they will only be catering to you once you have cleared the test and you've gotten the admission. Once you've gotten the admission, so then there's a proper financial aid form that you can fill. And in that form, there could be some personal questions as well. For example, how many siblings you have, how many dependents your parents have. You may have to submit some of the copies for your utility bills. In addition to that, you may have to submit some of the tax documents of your parents if they pay taxes, or the salary slip of your parents. And then they will calculate on the basis of that whether you're really worthy of any scholarship or not. But please notice, neither LUMS nor IBA will reject you or reject your admission on the basis of your financial ability or your financial condition. So for as long as you get in and you can prove that you actually need a scholarship or you're worthy of a scholarship, they will give you an admission. So at the start of the class, I talked about the two broad components, but at Tutor Plus, we have further broken it down into four components. One of the component is English, the other one is maths, the third one is the reading, and the fourth one is vocabulary. So if you were to ask me, sir, what are some of the two reasons why most of the people have failed IBS tests in the past few years or in the past 15 years, or why do you think IBS test is so notorious that we keep hearing things about it? It's difficult to crack, or that there are people who do find it challenging. So I would say one of the things I would really like to blame here is this thing, that is vocabs, because a lot many people do not have a vocabulary bank or vocabulary background, or they do not even have a reading background. This is why they have a poor vocabulary background, and that really contributes to their low score. Also, I will walk you guys through some of the past papers as well that IBA does test students on a lot of reading. And since the students do not have a reading background either, considering a lot many people do not read, so their English score suffers. And when their English score suffers, they're able to clear the cutoff for math somehow, but they're not able to clear the English cutoff. And then since they're not really able to clear their English cutoff, that contributes to their total marks as well. And which is why they're not able to clear the total cutoff as well. So this is why we have broken down these two separately, and we do take these two segments or these two portions in addition to the rest of the English. Also, Peter, this is going to be a syllabus for English, and that goes for both LCAT and IBA. So in case if you would like to copy it, you can pretty much copy it. We'll start off with the grammatical rules, sentence error, and there's another topic called sentence correction, sentence completion, closed passages, parajumble passages. Then we have reading comprehension, we've got critical reading, and we do a lot of grammar as well that is tested on the LCAT. And for LCAT, the depth of the grammar is going to be more than the IBS, than the IBS test. Then we have evidence-based reading and writing. Then we have poem and poem-based reading comprehension. Then we have essays, but for MB only. That's not relevant for you. Then we have sentence relation. Then we have got analogies as well. So in case if any of you wish to copy this, any of you wishes to copy this, so you can copy this and then we'll proceed. Anyway, for IB, we do not have these subjects. It's only English and maths. Same goes for LIMS. But for the next 3 months, we'll largely be talking about how to clear this test. But let's talk about how to fail this test. So it's very easy to fail this test. We can all slack off in the vocabulary. We can all not put in efforts to improve our maths, and we could not do enough reading. Considering IB does test students on a lot of reading question as well. So it could become very easy to fail this test, and it's important that we remember why people have historically failed this test. So if you do any of this, so it could be difficult for you to clear the test. Also, I would like to talk about how the people have historically failed this test. It would be the lack of discipline. So if you're taking this test, if you're studying for IBA, largely because of the peer pressure or your parental pressure, or because your counselor wants you to take this test, or because your friends are taking this test, or because everyone in A2 or intermediate is taking this test, so which is why you want to take this test, but you're not really doing the justice to this test, so that could affect your scores. You'll have to be serious. If you're not serious about this test, so there's no way you can clear it. Lack of perseverance means that there would be times when you would feel like giving up, or where you would feel that you cannot probably do it, or there will be times when you will be anxious, and there will be times when you will feel demotivated like a normal human being. But at that time, showing the perseverance and staying consistent could do wonders for you. So you have to be perseverant, and you have to stay consistent. Once again, lack of strategy is something that contributes the most. So I see people doing the SAT questions for IBA, thinking that they could clear IBA stress to the SAT maths. But please notice that I teach both of the courses. In fact, I teach more than these two courses. But if I were to compare IBA and SAT only, so IB's maths is way more different, way different than the SAT's maths. So you can't really, there could be an overlap of the two topics. So even the topics that are the same, IBA has a lot of depth in those topics, whereas SAT, considering SAT only sticks to a particular pattern. So for the SAT, they did not really go into depth of those topics. But for IBA does tend to go in a lot of depth on those specific topics. And I'm particularly talking about the topics which are the same. And once again, IBA does have a lot of topics which are not tested on the SAT. I will give you again the same example that I gave for the LCAT earlier. For example, IBA does have permutation. SAT does not have that. SAT has functions. IBA does have functions as well, but IBA does test function in a very different way and has a lot of depth in functions. And whereas the functions topic on the SAT is very simple, is very straightforward. Once again, SAT does not have age problems, or what could have age problems, but only maybe once in a blue moon, though it's not a regular part. But IBA does test age problems a lot. IBA does test work problems, not word problems, a lot. IBA once again tests students a lot on APGP, or arithmetic geometric progression, but SAT does not have that topic. So there's so many topics which are there in IBA test and are not tested on the SAT. Also, if you're somebody who's been preparing, considering how students, or how some students tend to prepare now, that you borrowed a PDF from here, which has not been revised, or you're preparing from an old video, or somebody put up an old YouTube channel list or YouTube list, and you're following that, which is not really relevant. So all of that is basically part of lack of strategy. So if you have a strategy which is outdated, or which is not going to work currently, so that also does contribute in a better score. Also, what really matters is the student to teacher ratio. That's super important as well. And also, what really matters before anything, I would say, is the experience of the teacher. Make sure you're not being taught by somebody who himself was, at your place just 1 year ago, because that is the case with so many institutes, and I'm not going to name them. And that would be a professional way to say it, but I'm sure you can do your fair research, and you can see that how the teachers in your classrooms are only hardly a year or maybe 2 years older than you. So that of course plays a big role. Also, what really contributes is how much of the how updated the practice material is that you're basically using. So you have to be sure that you're not really using the CBM practice material to get into IBA. So considering that IBA does not really like sticking to a pattern, and how they keep revising and how they keep increasing the difficulty levels, this also plays a significant role there. Also, what really matters is how different or how difficult the full length tests are that you're practicing. So if you have been doing easy tests, so that's only going to gratify you, please you, but that's not going to in a way improve your score. And what does finally matter the most is the passing ratio of of the institute wherever you're taking the classes from. A lot many institutes would tell you that 500, 200, 100 students of ours got into IBA. What a lot many people did not really make public that how many students they actually prepared, and out of them, how many eventually got in. What people do announce is that 100 of our students, 200 of our students got into IBA. What they hide is that thousands of their students failed the test as well, which is something that they do not really make public. So wherever you go to prepare, be it a tutor test, ask them about the passing ratio, because that's something that most people do not announce. They would either keep putting up the positions or they would either keep putting the total numbers, which is only just one matrix. So you need to look at what lies on the other side is and how many of the students are not able to eventually get in, because that's an important part of the overall statistic as well. Also, beta, please notice for these classes, I need you to remember that all of you may have come with a wish that you wish to get into IBA or LUMS, but we need other important ingredients which are going to contribute in your overall score. That includes your overall attitude, your aptitude, and your perseverance. So if you lack the aptitude, if you lack the attitude, that is your seriousness. So there's no way I could put you there in IBA. I could only work in on your aptitude, that is your skills, if you have a learning attitude and if you're serious. If you're somehow coming to the classes, but if you're not really putting in the hard work, so there's no way these classes are going to benefit you in any way. And perseverance is what I've already talked about. And then here's a bit of definition of perseverance as well. That perseverance is basically all the hard work that you basically put in when you think that you're already done putting the hard work. So another way to look at perseverance is that, every time you fall down, you have to get back up on settle. So that's something we define as perseverance as well. For our class, Peter, the timing that we are going to follow would be this. So in case if you want to take a note for this, so please do, and then proceed. It is the same timing, I believe. Also, but I would like to counsel you guys a bit, just in case if you would like to hear this, because that's going to help you as well. Look, uh, when you graduated or when I graduated, and we were looking for a college, for example, for our A levels college, so we were the buyer and we were the decision maker. Now I'm going to do a bit of discussion which is not directly related to the IBS test itself, but it is somehow related to the university. So when we are the buyer and when we are the decision maker, so we decide which of the college, which of the intermediate college, or which of the A levels college will eventually go to. In the professional life, please remember, it's employer who's the buyer. You being the employer would be the seller. And remember, it's buyer who is eventually the decision maker. In this case, the buyer is going to be employer. An employer would have tens of CVs in front of him. And it's up to him whether he wants to call you for the interview or he does not wish to call you for the interview. Now, in case if you want to be a bit realistic and if you do not want to be delusional, and in case if you all have already come to the conclusion, and in case if you are already aware of the fact that 4 years or maybe 5 years down the road, you will be taking your first step towards professional life, considering you're not already working. So the way it works is, beta, that every organization has a culture. So even if you were to talk about Pakistan, so Kareem has a different culture, Unilever has a different culture, Procter and Gamble has a different culture. So each of these big names has a different culture. And deep down, why do we wish to get into a good university? It's because of this one word, that is employability. No matter how much we sugarcoat it, no matter what we say, because of teachers, because of the way they teach, because of the brand name and so on. But deep down, we do know that's one thing, one factor, that is employability, that is our ability of getting hired. So a lot of these universities, and I would particularly talk about IB and LUMS over here, considering I'm referring to the business schools over here only and not the engineering school, but the same goes for engineering schools as well. So what IBA and LUMS do is that they tend to have a lot many employers come to their campuses. Or if I were to talk about from the perspective of employers or multinational companies, so they tend to conduct career drives. They would be coming to your universities, and when you are in your 7th and 8th semester, and they would be setting up their stalls there for a week, and you could go to as many of those stalls as you possibly can. You can just drop in your CV there, and if they like it, they can have an interview over there. Or if they're not willing to take your interview, maybe they would like to exchange numbers with you, and then they could call you for interview in a week from then. And while you're in 7th and 8th semester, you will still have a job. So what happens is that you do an on-campus interview, or maybe you exchange your numbers, or you exchange your LinkedIn profile, just in case you guys know what LinkedIn is. And once you're done with the first interview, so you have the second and third interview, and then you already have a job before you graduate from a university. Now, I'm not really trying to tempt you in any way, considering you guys are not kids, but considering that you're already 22 and 23 by the time you guys are graduating, and you to 200K, that's lucrative and that's good considering you're only 22 and 23. But please notice, it only happens once we end up in good universities. This would not be the case with the second or the third tier universities, which I'm not going to name in this session, considering this is getting recorded and maybe this will be put up there on the YouTube as well. So I would not be naming the universities, considering we have friends who teach over there. So I would be careful with that, but I'm sure you're aware of the second and the third tier universities. There are second tier universities in Lahore, there are second tier universities in Karachi, there are third tier universities in Karachi and Lahore both. So I'm assuming that most of you are from here. So what I'm saying here is, beta, okay, if you do get into a good university, you really set a good foundation for your professional career. And from there onwards, beta, if you get into a good company, you can get a good experience. For example, if I were to talk about Unilever, for example, you get into Unilever, and if you perform well, they move you to their headquarters. Let's just say they move you to Unilever headquarters, which is in London. And if you do well over there, they train you there for another 3 years, and they give you a bigger segment to manage. Maybe they would ask you to control the entire Pantene segment in Dubai. Maybe they would want you to control the entire wall segment in Singapore. So that's how companies keep training their employees. That's how it works. But it all starts off from a good university. You would not have the same shots, you would not have the same chances if you get into mediocre universities. So that's something that you guys have to particularly pay attention to, because deep down we all know that it comes down to one word, that is employability. And the problem with the organizations over here is that, particularly IBA, and the problem with the organizations over here is that most of these organizations, be it Unilever, be it Procter and Gamble, be it Racket Bankizir, be it some of the other employers which are considered top tier employers in Pakistan, they have historically hired from IBM alums that they do not really consider the graduates of other universities unless and until those graduates have outperformed the graduates of IBM alums in different organizations, and then only they could consider them. So I'm not saying that you can't get into these organizations if you're from second tier universities, but you'll have to work super hard as compared to an IBA student or as compared to an LUMS student to be considered, because you will in a way be fighting for the same spot that an IBA or LUMS student will be fighting for. So what I was telling here is that a lot of these organizations have historically hired students from IB and LUMS. So they first reach out to the students in IB and LUMS. And once again, they do have a lot of departments which are only filled by the students from IB and LUMS. And they have historically hired or from IB and LUMS as well. And they have actually made an error as well of hiring from second tier universities. Now, what happens usually is that when they hire someone from second tier universities, so people do eventually have a problem in, settling there, and they're not able to perform. So which is why most of the organizations have to, rehire, interview again, train people again, send them to Islamabad or their headquarters for training, make them stay in hotels, you know, pay the trainer again, and then all of that costs the organization a lot. So, which is why organizations are not willing to experiment, which is why they continue to hire from the same universities, because they have historically hired from the same universities over the years. So they do know that whether this person will be able to, take the stress, which is a good stress. And not stress is not always a negative, but just by the way, whether this person will be able to, do the pitches, will be able to give the pitches the way we want, whether he will be able to give the presentations that we want. So since employers themselves know that how good he or she has been trained, so which is why they want to only invest in such people who they have usually hired over the past many years. So that's something from the perspective of organizations as well, which I wanted you guys to understand. Also, there is one thing, Peter, that we refer to as alumni network. A lot many of you may not know what alumni network is. So alumni network basically means that, let's just say you guys will be a class of 2029. You guys will be graduating in 2029. So you will know people who will be graduating 1 year before you, 2 year before you, 3 year before you. And while you're in IB or LUMS, you will get to know people who will be coming one after you, 2 year after you, and then another 3 year after you. And if these people, I'm not saying that you'll be friends with all of these people. What I'm saying is that these people would know you somehow. So either they could be your friends, they could be friends of friends, or maybe they could be friends of friends of friends. So what happens is, let's just say, if you apply somewhere where this people, where this person, my bad, is working, who graduated 2 year ago before 2 year before you, and let's just say if your CV goes there in the same organization where this person is already working, so this person, there could be two cases. Either this person is hiring you directly, so he's well aware of the fact, he's well aware of the courses, he's well aware of how you've studied, or maybe somebody else is hiring, and that person could reach out this person, and that person could ask him about you, that do you know of this person? And if this person somehow knows you, so maybe he could tell you. Otherwise, he could ask around, and he could ask others how good of a person you are, how good of a person you can be if you were to be hired. So what this is how alumni network works basically. So if you have somebody who's working in a particular organization, let's just say if you would get fired, for example, you may have seen recently that a lot many people were fired from their hours, and most of them were able to get a job within 2 weeks of their getting fired. Why? Because they had a good alumni network. They simply put it out there on their LinkedIn that the RAS has fired us for this reason, and most of them were hired within 2 weeks. Why exactly were they hired? A, because of the brand name. B, because of the alumni network. So that's how alumni network works. So for IBA alums, beta, we do have a very broad alumni network. IBA has a very huge history, considering it's the oldest business school outside the North America continent. Now that explains you a lot about how old it is. So it has a lot of alumni network. LUMS does again have a lot of alumni network as well. So alumni network does come into play there. Just in case, but if you guys have any question that you would like to go over, so that would like me to go over, so please do let me know. And otherwise, I'll start off with the topic. Batul Beta, I'm asking your questions. You asked me about the cutoff. The total cutoff does not vary. This is the same cutoff for everyone, but they usually do some statistical calculation, and on the basis of that, they decide what the cutoff for that particular given year will be. But they do take into account everyone's performance before they calculate it. They have not really made the criteria public yet how exactly they calculate it, but they do take into account everyone's marks, and then they have one single cutoff for everyone. But once again, it's dependent on how good or bad you have performed at this and how exactly. So if majority of the people have found IBS test difficult, so the cutoff would be low and vice versa. So Rajbit, I have talked about this, but there is a proper way to take the transfer. So you will have to take the transfer, but there is a proper way to take the transfer. For Khan beta, do you have a question? Batul, Javeri, Kashyap, Maham, Ali beta, do you have a question? Rabia, Raheen beta, Umama, do you have a question? Kashyap beta, do you have a question?
No, sir, clear enough.
Umama beta, for these classes, in case you're sitting for Habib's HU top, CBM Zabis test, and the NUS business school test, so these classes will suffice for the universities that I've just taken the names of, uh, including the HU top for Habib and the Habib's own test that is taken on IQ Placer, which is a software. Batul beta, that honestly depends on you, but almost everyone is doing some sort of side hustle now. So we do have people who are already there in IBA and they've been running their own businesses. We do have a lot many students. There are people who are doing proper jobs, proper 8-hour jobs. There are a lot many people who are doing proper freelancing in addition to being a full-time student there at IBA. So yeah, you can pretty much manage it. So IBA does not really stop you from working while you're there in the undergrad program. And if you're asking about the course loads, the course load is pretty much manageable. Though there's a lot of course loads, I would not say that there's no course load. They give you a lot of assignments, but again, it's manageable. There are people who are doing proper jobs, proper 8-hour jobs, in addition to studying there at IB. Umama and Batul, what is this to you? But we'll start off from the very first topic in English, and that is our grammatical rules. And we'll do it in for an hour, and then from tomorrow we'll be starting off our proper classes. Considering it was largely an orientation class, and then from tomorrow we'll do both maths and English. My bad. Tomorrow we have a test. It's a diagnostic test that we have for every batch. I'm sorry I could not talk about that. So just excuse me for that. So what happens? I'll just explain this in a bit. So we'll be evaluating your baseline scores, as in we're currently use 10. If you were to take I-based test, we refer to that as a baseline score, as in where exactly you're starting off from, because everyone has a different level, and just wrong to assume that everyone has same academic level or same academic background. So once we have your baseline score, so what we do is that I will be sitting down with you in a one-on-one session. So that one-on-one session can be taken by your parents or your elder siblings in case if they are your academic guardians, but that can be taken by you only as well. So what we do here is, for example, if you score 160 there, and if we think for a similar test, the cutoff for IB would be, let's just say, 240. So we'll see that how much or what exactly you've scored there in English and what exactly you've scored there in maths, and what areas you need to work on the most, and how exactly you'll have to study. And then we make a study plan for you. It isn't like you'll have to study to that study plan, but what we do is we ask you that what exactly your day is like, if you're taking any other prior tuitions for A levels or intermediate that you're already committed to, and then how many hours you have and how exactly you'll have to study. So based on that, we tell you that how exactly, or we suggest you how to study. Once again, you that's it's advisable that you follow the plan, but once again we sit down with you and we discuss the plan with you, and then we tell you that how exactly you will have to study to be able to get into IBA. So it's usually a 15 minutes to 30 minutes session with each student, but that can only be done once we have your baseline scores. So tomorrow we're only going to take your test. There won't be any class tomorrow, but on in the coming week we'll have the classes and these sessions as well. And these sessions will be taken on weekdays. The classes are going to be on weekends. The sessions are going to be online for everyone, regardless of the fact whether for those of you who are taking a class on campus, even for you, these sessions that I'm referring to will only be conducted online. So, I'm starting off from the very first topic in English. The topic name is pronoun. And whenever you're doing grammatical rules, or whenever you're trying to get acquainted and familiarized with the grammatical rules, I need you to remember two things. Knowing the English, or knowing the spoken English, or being good at spoken English is just very different from being good at grammar. So you may be super good at spoken English, but you may not even be half as good at grammar. So you need to understand that these two are very different things, and we do not really have to confuse them. The second thing I would like you guys to know here is that whenever you're doing grammar, you need to set your intuition aside. A lot many people do grammar this way, that they think that this is the correct answer, or they think that this is the correct answer, why this should be the correct answer, but that is not how the grammar works. Grammar is essentially rules based, or based on certain rules, and we have to abide by those rules whenever we're doing grammar, so that the grammar is not really based on intuition. Intuition means that I feel like this is the correct answer, so which is why this should be the correct answer, but the grammar does not really work that way. Elevator will be shared on your Google Drive. Will be asking you for email. Elevator, the test is taken on, will be taken on the same time. That's 2:30 to 6 p.m. Batul Bita by hybrid, as in we post-COVID, I would say we do have students who are coming to the institute and they're students who are taking the class online. So it's up to you. There is zero difference. And if I were to talk to you about the statistic, so I would say that 90% of our students from if I would talk about different batches, so there have been batches even I would say that there have been batches where 90 to 95% of the students are online. So we absolutely have no difference between the two modes of teaching. So you could come here and you can experience the on-campus class. And if you think that there's no difference, I would say that you should probably save your time. But if you're somebody who's not able to pay attention uh, online, so then I would recommend that you can come here and take the class on campus. So yeah, we do allow that, and we do not really stop anyone from coming to the campus. But once again, there's no difference between the two modes of classes. So, but the first rule that we're doing here is called subject renoun. Please understand how subject renoun works. There's a list for subject renoun, that is he, she, it, I, we, you, they, and who. Now, I need you to understand why what we're doing is important. So I'll walk you guys through some of the papers here. Elevator, that's not an issue. We have students from almost every city. But I have taught students from the cities now that you would probably not ever heard the name of. So we do have students from almost every city now and almost every batch. So I'll open a past paper here for you guys. I'll go to the math, go to the English section here. What you see is what we refer to as a closed passage. This is what a closed passage is like. I'm not saying close, I'm saying close with a Z. So I'm supposed to put in and choose the relevant option, but I could only do so once I know certain grammatical rules related to punctuation. And once again, we do not have this question this way on the ACT. We do have the MCQs, but we do not have an entire passage based on grammar there on the ACT. So this is just one of the sample paper, and this has closed passages. And once again, you're supposed to put in the relevant word from the blank. You see the vocabulary, but I would call it almost easy to medium vocabulary, considering the vocabulary does get difficult. So once again, we can only do these questions that you see on the screen from 59 to 72 if we have a good vocabulary bank. Then you have more questions based on vocabulary, and then you have some of the reading comprehension questions, and so on. I'll show you a completely different paper from IBA. So that was for a different year. That was, I believe, was for 2016. I'll go to a different paper altogether now. And I need you to compare the two English portion now. So you would notice, once again, it has certain closed passage based on grammar only. The closed passages could either be based on grammar or vocabulary, could be based on some of the articles as well. By articles, I mean and the, because IBA does tend to test some of the very basic thing as well. So these are closed passages based on vocabulary, and then you have reading comprehension. I'll walk you guys through another paper. Once again, you have closed passages based on vocabulary. Then we have sentence relationship. We have to tell how the sentence are related. You can see how they're testing basic articles. So they can test you even on these basic articles that we learned way back in our schools. Then you have more reading comprehension. Then we have para-jumble passages where we have to put the passage in the correct order. Then you have sentence correction. You're supposed to choose a correct version of the sentence based on certain grammatical rules. Let's go over another paper. You could see over here, they're testing the vocabulary and they've basically given you the definition, and you're supposed to choose the correct word based on the meaning. Then you would see another 10 words over here, and we refer to that as sentence completion. What we did previously is sentence correction. This is called sentence completion. You're supposed to complete the sentence. Think of it as a fill in the blanks, as we had in our schools way back in our primary schools. We're supposed to put in the correct word there in the blank. Then once you have more reading comprehension, and then you have 10 questions based on grammar. So once again, we can only do this once we have good grip on grammatical rules. So you can read one of these questions so you would understand that what the correct answer, what the question could look like. So I'm zooming out and you can pretty much see what question 35, 36, 37 are like. Because I did explain that BBA, ACF, social sciences, and BS economics, they have the same test. And the programs that require you to have maths in your A levels or intermediate, such as computer sciences, BS mathematics, BS in economics, they have a different test. So there are only two kinds of tests. But if you wish to appear for BBA or ACF, or if you plan on applying to either of the two programs, so you have to take one test only, that is the same test. It isn't like that you're required to take two tests and you're required to take two different tests. So you'll be taking the same test. That is the same test will work for both BBA, ACF, economics, and the social sciences program. Kashyap, is this clear to you? Alibita, I'll have to see that what the current fee is. I would not be updated on that, but I'll have to check the current website what the fee is. But fee is one aspect. There are many scholarships and there's so many other ways to eventually, discuss the HISNA program, that there is National Talent Hunt program, just in case if any of you has financial issues, then there are some of the scholarships which are only for women. So there's so many ways to eventually get the scholarship. But what we do here is that we keep worrying about the fee instead of worrying about the tests. The fee or the debate about fee is only relevant once you have gotten in. Yes, so Mama Beta, only the cutoffs are different. Only the total cutoffs would be different. And other than that, there's no difference. It's just that you are taking the same test. So a little bit at the start that you missed was this. The test has two broad components. It has English and it has maths. But we do not have a specific time limit. For English, we could have 60 to 65 questions. For maths, we could have 60 to 65 minutes, and we could have 45 to 50 questions. Likewise, for maths, we could have 70 to 80 minutes, and we could have 45 to 50 questions. So that's about IBA. So the time duration is not fixed. The number of the question is not fixed either. The next thing that you remember is that how exactly the grading works. So the grading works basically this way, that you get 4 marks for every question that you get correct, and you get 0 point for every question that you get wrong. So if there are 7 questions, and if you get 4 of them correct, your marks would be 28. And for the wrong question, there is no negative marking, so your net score will then be 28. And once again, there's another thing that we call cutoff. Cutoff basically means passing marks. So let's just say IBA would say that this is the cutoff. So you need 60 in English, 90 in maths, 205 should be your total score. So you should be able to clear the cutoff for the three sections. So if you clear the English cutoff only and the maths cutoff only, but if you do not meet the total cutoff, so you will in a way fail IBS test. Remember, the total cutoff will be 40 to 45 or 50 points greater than the sum of the two individual sections. So the sum of the two sections here is 150, but the total cutoff is going to be 205. So in a way, you'll have to perform extra well in maybe both the sections or one of the sections. So even this person will fail IELTS test because this person is not meeting the total cutoff by 5 points. Likewise, this person will fail IELTS test because this person is failing the English by 8 points. He's clearing the maths portion, he's clearing the total cutoff, but he's failing the English portion. So that's how the cutoff works. And cutoff is not really fixed, it keeps on changing and it depends on the difficulty level of the exam. So the harder the exam, the higher the cutoff, the lower the cutoff will be, and vice versa. Ali, beta, do you have a question? Rahim, Umama. Ali, did you miss this part, beta? Ali, beta, did you miss this or did you miss the part that comes after it as well? Yes, beta, this is an example over here. This basically means that we will be needing, let's say, 60 marks for the English, 90 for maths, but our total cutoff should be 205. Now, if this person, for example, if you look at this person has met the cutoff for English, met the cutoff for maths, but has not met the total cutoff, so which is why this person will not be considered for IBA, for not be considered for the BBA program and will not be considered for the AC program and instead will be considered for the social sciences program only. Why exactly, Umama, that is the case? Because this person apparently is not meeting the total cutoff for BBA and not meeting the total cutoff for social sciences. So this person will be considered for the third program, that is the social sciences program. So that's how this works. Leave it as this clear to you? Yes, but you have to get the minimum marks in across all areas, beta, as in across the three sections. Mama, beta, do you have a question? Raheen, beta, do you have a question? Okay, just in case, beta, if you guys have any question, you can just let me know. Thank you, beta.